Today we're going to be finding out how much monitor you can get for $160. This is the Lilliput A7S 7-inch monitor, not to be confused with the Sony camera by the same name. When researching a monitor to get for my Blackmagic Pocket 4K, I came across this monitor and was attracted by its price and its proposed feature set. The monitor does not have a touchscreen, so for controls you are limited to the 4 buttons on top as well as a scroll wheel, which also doubles as a button as well. I found going through the menu system fairly intuitive. Most of the settings you're going to need are going to be on the very first page. The only settings that I changed were increasing saturation, contrast, and increasing the tint as well. The settings I used were 75 for contrast, 75 for saturation, and 65 for my tint, and everything else I left alone. The color accuracy is good enough. I wouldn't use it to set your white balance or anything like that. And honestly, I don't really care too much about color accuracy. Mostly what I use my monitor for is just being able to see my shots if my camera's at a different angle, as well as of course make it easier to pull focus if I'm on a larger 7-inch monitor and framing and stuff like that. Now honestly, a 7-inch monitor is probably about the largest I would be able to handle in my rig. Sometimes I do find it gets a little bulky, but it is nice to have a really large image to see what you're filming, because that does allow you to catch things you might otherwise miss. But as far as whether you should choose a 7 or 5-inch monitor, that really comes down more to personal preference, but I personally do enjoy using the 7-inch. Before I go on, let me go ahead and talk about everything they include in the box. It comes in a pretty basic, if not overly sturdy, cardboard box. It of course included the monitor itself along with a rubber case, a user guide which I never looked at, a DC power cable, HDMI to mini HDMI cable, a Velcro attached sun hood, and battery plate adapter. Now this battery plate adapter is if you want to use LPE6 batteries rather than an NPF battery. You can switch out the plates in a pretty intuitive manner. There's a little locking switch which you have to disable, and then you can pop out one plate and then slide in the other. Personally, however, I think you're much better off using NPF batteries because they're cheaper, you can get them in much larger capacities, but if you happen to have a bunch of these batteries lying around, then you can use them. Alright, so we're going to start off by talking about the monitor itself and then slowly go over each accessory one by one. For ports, it's pretty simple. You have an HDMI in, HDMI out, DC in, and a headphone jack. Headphone jack is for, of course, monitoring audio, which I guess would be useful if you can't get to the port of your camera. On the top, you have your power button, function 1, function 2, exit, and a scroll wheel for navigating the menu, which you also use to select menu items. The 2 function buttons can be mapped to basically any assist feature that the monitor has, which there are a lot of, by the way. I currently don't use any of them because I have all my assist features built in on my Blackmagic, and I just have it mirroring whatever my Blackmagic has onto the monitor itself. But if you're using it with a camera that doesn't have features like focus peaking, zebras, stuff like that, then having them built into the monitor is really nice. As far as mounting options, you have a 1/4-inch thread on both the top and bottom, as well as 4 mounting holes on the back. I'm honestly not really sure what these are for, but I can find out though. Maybe I should have opened that manual. Well, the manual makes no mention of those holes, so the build of the hardware seems pretty sturdy. You can get the plastic to creak if you really squeeze it, but it's really not that bad. It feels solid. It feels like it could survive a couple drops. My only real complaint is with the NPF battery plate. It is way too hard to attach batteries and put them back in. I will find often, like you see right here, the battery plate itself will actually disconnect from the monitor, even if that switch is closed. Sometimes it'll just push it right open. So that's kind of disappointing that you really kind of got to cram your batteries out. But at least, you know, once they're in there, they're definitely not going anywhere. As soon as you put a battery in it, the monitor will turn on, so be sure to remember that in case you just put a battery in it for the next day's shoot. It will automatically turn on and run your battery down unless you turn it off. The LCD panel itself is a plastic and it does scratch extremely easily. As you can see there, I already have several dents and dings in it just from a few weeks of use. And I haven't even dropped it. That's literally just from moving it from place to place and attaching it and taking it off of my camera. So that is somewhat disappointing, but you can't really see the scratches when the screen is on, so it doesn't get in the way of using the monitor, but you do have to be careful about that. Now, it did come with a protective layer of plastic that I just peeled off like you do with every other device you get. So if you wanted to, you could leave that on for some extra protection. This is the rubber case, or I guess sleeve, that comes with the monitor, and it is actually surprisingly high quality. Not that that's really hard to produce, but it's pretty thick. It doesn't cover up any of your ports or buttons, and I do feel much more confident about using it out in the field. With this, it does feel much more protected, and of course it adds this lip so that if you drop it, the screen won't actually touch the ground, as well as giving you the Velcro required to mount the sun shield. Speaking of which, this is the sun shield. It's made out of plastic that has been creased in both sides with some nice felt fabric on the inside. You can attach it to the monitor just like this, and it works pretty well. Not much to say about it. Just a basic sun shield gets the job done. As far as the HDMI cable included, it is HDMI to mini HDMI cables, so this will work with most mirrorless and DSLRs, but you want to check to see what port your particular camera has. For instance, my Pocket 4K has a full-size HDMI, so I couldn't use this cable, but I did test it on another camera and it does work. As far as my overall user experience with the monitor, I would say it has been overwhelmingly adequate. By that I mean it's worked perfectly well for my needs, but it is a $160 monitor. So for framing your shots and getting focus, it worked perfectly well for me. It always displayed exactly what I sent it, no problems, and that includes both 1080p and 4K signals. A monitor is one of the most useful things you can attach to a camera rig, and I'd say this is a really great option if you're on a budget. It doesn't have a touchscreen like some other monitors, so going through the menu systems can seem a bit slow sometimes, but I didn't really find it to be a problem. I found everything I needed during my initial setup, and honestly I haven't touched the menu system since then. I will go ahead and put every single page of the menu system on screen here so you can see all the different options there are. I'm not going to go through each of them one by one, but if you're interested, you can pause the video here and look at them. So yeah, overall, I definitely would recommend this monitor. There's only two things I would really change about the monitor. The first is loosening that battery mounting solution so it's not super tight when you want to remove the battery. And also, I really wish there was a 1/4 inch on the side instead of just the top and bottom so that it would be easier to mount it beside the camera rather than just above it. But other than that, it's really a great little monitor, or great large monitor, I guess. And I think for most people, it will be perfectly sufficient for anything that they would need to use it for. If you have any more questions about the monitor that I didn't answer in this video, be sure to let me know down in the comments. I'm Josiah. Thanks for watching.